Thank you, Shikha. Thank you, Akriti, Legal Era. And thank you, Shukla, for your opening comments, which were very interesting. Akriti asked me to generally speak about thoughts on improvement in opportunity for economic success, rebound, and how policies, regulators, the judiciary could possibly participate in the process, keeping, of course, in mind their role, their responsibilities. But is it possible to actually look at an overall growth path with all stakeholders participating? And this is actually a topic very close to my heart because I'm a firm believer that the judiciary, the legal process, legal recourse must keep in touch and keep track with developments in technology, developments in the way business is done, keep in touch and keep track with what businessmen expect in a country to compete domestically and internationally. So a few thoughts I'd like to share. Given India's response to COVID, given how the stock markets are high, several businesses have grown, we've all adapted. The courts, as we know, are operating online, arbitrations are happening online. In any event, we had started a lot of online filing for regulatory approvals, income tax, etc. So India was moving along quite well. At the same time, as we know, for example, the judicial process in courts has necessarily slowed down. The number of pending cases has increased significantly. As we know, most courts were shut for some time. In some cases, there were online hearings, but primarily for urgent applications. So again, like I said, just to share some thoughts. What does business expect? What does a businessman expect when he starts a business, as he grows his business, as it expands into different areas, may involve exports, imports, manufacturing, services, etc. And one thing I think which we saw was working successfully was the Foreign Investment Promotion Board as an example of a one-stop shop. Now, how does a one-stop shop help? If people can actually apply through a portal relevant to what they want to do, and at the back end, the regulators distribute the application, consider it, come back with whatever their responses are, and allow the businessman to say whether he can or cannot do what he wants to do, and why not, rectify any defects, and move on. As you know, currently there are multiple agencies often one has to deal with to apply to,
recording in progress,
and get a response or approval from. In each of these cases, the statute applicable is likely to be different. There may be a statute, rules, regulations, notifications, forms, etc. And it's entirely possible one will slip up in completing these. It's entirely possible one will start receiving notices then from the regulators saying that you have not complied with A or B or C, and start filling up further forms, replying to show cause notices, going for personal hearings, engaging with lawyers to represent you, etc. So one strong recommendation, given what technology permits today to be done, is looking at a backend within the regulatory framework in India, which will deal with a composite application that can be made online for any business, any expansion, any kind of activity, whether it is a trademark registration, intellectual property protection, etc. One can expand on this theme and even look at land registries, which are gradually becoming online, electronic, where you know the title to a property is good or bad and who the owner is. But there's a long way to go again for that. So again, it's entirely possible somebody buys a property, leases a property, excuse me, and finds a defect in title, and again goes into a spin trying to understand how to deal with that. The same applies to things like environment and other areas. So that was one line of suggestions as to how one can actually use technology to streamline the entire application, business setup, and regulatory process as far as compliance is concerned. A second one could well be, if things do go wrong, instead of making the person or businessman run to multiple agencies or multiple agencies chasing the individual, if there could be a lead agency that takes charge, the others cooperate, coordinate with that agency. And again, the intent is the business has a one-stop shop to deal with. Queries come together, they get answered together, and life goes on in a manner that doesn't require running around to several different people who are all asking questions, some of which may be the same, but their responsibility and the consequences may be different. A similar situation could arise with the courts. As we know, there are many cases where if a company is going downhill, yes, of course, the National Company Law Tribunal can get approached under the IBC. But there may be many other proceedings also pending or filed against that company, its promoters, its directors. Again, I believe with the use of technology, if centralized, and I know we do not have it yet centralized across courts or across regulatory agencies, but all that could possibly be bunched up. The consequences could still ensue. I'm not suggesting somebody gets off scot-free or somebody gets a lighter sentence or a lighter consequence. But the entire thing could be coordinated in a far better manner. Again, so that a person is dealing with one set of people, judges, regulators, rather than multiple of them, if that is possible. We've had conversations across various groups, industry associations, each of them suggesting change. All suggestions obviously are not necessarily to be acted upon. But like I said earlier, I very strongly feel that given the capability of what technology can achieve today and will continue to improve upon, and we've seen it so much in our daily lives in the last few months, I think we've all become so dependent, whether it's for banking, other forms of money transfers, ordering goods to be delivered, and it works pretty seamlessly. If we can actually use some of this, it could be a 1-year plan, 2-year plan, but maybe COVID has been a great catalyst to teach each of us how to adapt. And if indeed we can push things in the right direction, and as a community of lawyers, regulators, judges, bureaucrats, and the legislators, maybe have a task force or task forces to look at this, have a plan in place and implement the plan. I honestly believe India could be a world leader in terms of business confidence and ease of doing business, which, as we know, our government has been focusing upon, and the World Bank Index has been showing us as going up in that. I know some of these sound very drastic, but having said that, unless one aims really high, one will keep moving in a certain speed. If one does aim really high, one can start taking steps in that direction. So that's what I wanted to share today. And thank you so much for the opportunity.